So today, me and Rick have driven to west central Wisconsin into the hill country where we have some steep bluff type country, and we're seeking out public land to hunt on this fall. And I'm specifically looking for places that are hard to access for other people. And I found this property, studying some maps. That's a rather large piece of public property that has no parking lots and very limited access. We had to shove our vehicle off the road and access right between a couple houses in a little thin line of public land to get back here. And although we did see one footprint coming back here on the axis, it doesn't look like very many people get back here, so I think we found a pretty isolated property. So we're going to go scout these hills and see if we can find some good bedding areas and some good setups, and we thought you might like to come along. So let's go. So this property is a big bowl. We came into the bottom of the bowl and we're coming up these creeks that all come together down here and then run down out of the property. So for me, a lot of people would waste a lot of time down here. What I want to do is I want to get up high on the outer rim of this bowl and look at all the little bedding points on the 1/3 elevation aiming down here, and I want to see if there's big bucks bedding up there. If there's no big buck sign, I'm not wasting my time on this property scouting everything. And from those bedding points, I can determine how close I can get to those points, and I can hunt them where the deer bed where they are in daylight. So our first goal on this property is to get up high and walk that 1/3 ring. And you take a property this size, I don't know, it's a couple hundred acres, we can scout it really quick just walking that 1/3 line. And if it's doesn't look good, we'll get down, move to another property instead of wasting our time. So I wanted to show you this bed that I found here. It's watching the human axis. And even though there ain't a lot of people that come in here, it's obviously watching that axis point. But it's not a very good bed, and I'm sure it's not being used by a mature buck. The reason I wanted to show it is because of all this hair in the bed. See this? A lot of people mistake that for part of a dead deer or something like that. But these beds at this time of the year, if they're being used right now, will be full of hair like that because they're shedding their winter coat and growing a summer coat as it's getting warmer like this. So that's still a bed, and that's why they're all hairy. We covered quite a bit of distance going up to the top here, and what was interesting is we've only ran across like 2 or 3 decent trails, nothing spectacular, and it's pretty open woods. I haven't seen one rub, not a one. But that's not concerning me yet, because the way those hills lay out up here are pretty good, these points. However, if it's really open terrain like it is up here, all the way around, and this property needs to be logged, you might not find that great at bedding. But we'll find out when we get up there. One thing, when I go to these different terrains, is I really appreciate the land and the beauty. When you go up to this hill country and you see these rock outcroppings and you see the grain in them, from being eaten away to take this shape, it's amazing. You just wonder how many millions of years that took. This is cool stuff.
I think actually only a couple thousand.
Yeah, see that little bed down there? I couldn't find any deer hair in it, but you can see it's matted down. I'm sure that's been bedded in. You see that?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear Rick breathing? It's like a freight train.
Shut up.
So you see this open hardwoods here? A lot of times when the woods is real open like this, what I look for bedding is tangles of downfalls. And I see up there a tangle of trees falling down. And we're going to go up in there, and it's right at about the right elevation. And that's where I'd suspect the bedding is on this ridge, if there's bedding here. It's a little bit open for bedding. But if there is any here, I'm going to expect it to be right in that tangle. So right on the point where I was expecting to find bedding, Here's a tree stand. So it literally doesn't look like it's been used all that much. It looks like it was used once or twice. Kind of funny they leave it here for once or twice, but it's on public, totally illegal. But that's the stuff we got to deal with. And the good part is they're letting me know their hand. I'm seeing where they hunt. That's probably a good reason why we're not seeing a lot of rubs up here. He probably moves around though. There's not a lot of sign of him hunting this. There's a little bit. But it doesn't look like he climbed it a lot. Keep looking. So I'm up at the top third now, and I'm in that tangle we pointed out. And we got that tree stand close by, but there are beds up here. Not a lot, not real well used, but there are beds up here. There's a bed right here behind this log that looks right down at that tree stand. Right here. You see the leaves matted down, you see poopies. If we get real close, I'm sure we'll see some hair. I saw some a second ago. Yeah, there's one. Right here. Belly hair. Yeah, and there's some under the leaves too, so it's been bedded for a while. You can see that this was used recently and it's been used in the past. The leaves are compressed, so it's been used pretty recently.
Back up against the log, or is he looking down?
Oh, he's looking downhill, so he's going to be looking like this, right where that guy's coming from. That stand is right there. Any axis is coming from down there up this point. He's just sitting here in his tangle, and he can just go right over the hill and escape. It's a good spot, but you know, I don't see too much sign of really big bucks here yet. But there's another bed there all full of poop. See that? Oh yeah. So there's a few beds right here. There's one right there, right in front of that log. That's got a good backdrop. Yeah, that one's got compressed leaves too, so it hasn't been used too long ago. Oh, there's another one right behind the tree here. This one's pretty worn down. Right here. So these deer can look right down the hill and see that tree stand easily when that guy comes up and sets up. So again, this guy is literally setting up right in the bedding area.
On his bed, yep.
Yep. Still not that exciting of deer sign. And I know the public ain't getting in here much because of the access, but there is a lot of private properties up against this property. But it's still disappointing to see these guys setting up permanent stands all over the place. You see his bow arm up there. That's totally illegal. This is public land, and there's pressure from the private land guys all over on here. Obviously they think they own this because nobody comes back here. But hopefully that most of this is in the front of the property, and when we get to the back where we're looking, hopefully those guys aren't up back there. But there's no sign up here of big bucks, and that is why. I'm starting to wonder if I'm fooling myself about not much pressure here.
Yeah.
Look at this. My crossbow. Expandable. I wonder where he was. In this angle, man, he'd almost have to be up this tree right here. Interesting. So we finally got a fresh rub that is decent. And this is literally, we've semi-circled the property, the first rub we found that's decent. However, I think all the access is coming in from those private landowners. I don't think it's coming in from the public, because there's really hardly any access into here, and there's not a trail into here from the only place you could access from the public. So I think those landowners are encroaching onto the public just off of their land, and hopefully they're not getting this far up. I was hoping I would see more sign. I hope this is a good sign, and I hope when we get up here we find a lot more of it. Got my fingers crossed. A good determination of use of public property, unfortunately, is the amount of garbage you find. When you see soda cans and stuff around, that's a good sign it's being used. Most guys are pigs, believe it or not. However, I'm not seeing a ton of garbage out here. However, when I do see garbage like that, I look around. And the first thing I see looking around, I literally saw while I was talking to you, is there's a tree stand in that tree right there. See it, Rick?
Yep.
Yep. So that's tree stand number 3 on this public property, and we haven't gone all that far. So, see garbage, look around, look up. All right, we found another nice rub. It's in line with the other one, and we're about 100 yards from that tree stand. And we're starting to wrap the corner. So what we did is, if you make the land of property a square like this, we came in here and we wrapped around the corner to here. The good bedding is back here. We haven't even got to it yet, what we think is good bedding. But as we're getting close, we're starting to find sign. So there is hope. I mean, none of these tree stands look like they're in smart locations. They all look like they're in locations where you wouldn't have much luck, your average guy. So if those guys aren't smart enough to go to these points, or don't want to walk that far and up and down these ridges, this could be good. And we are picking up on sign. Even the trails and the tracks on the trails are getting fresher, more used. So I'm a little happy to see a little more sign over here. One thing I wanted to mention too is we could have just went right down into that valley and back up to over here, but it's actually a lot more work than walking around and staying at one elevation. One thing in hill country you don't want to do is go up and down. Try and get in an elevation and stay there. That 1/3 elevation where all the sign is, just follow that around. That's all you need to know, and that's where you can walk without, killing yourself. Going up and down these hills will kill you. But staying at this elevation is just like walking flat ground. So we're getting close to the knobs now. Hopefully we don't run into any more tree stands, and hopefully we find some good bedding over there. I guess we'll see. So as we're getting closer and closer to those points, sign is picking up for sure. And this rub height is consistent with the other 2 rubs. Almost like there's one good buck around here. And one good thing I see about this is this tree here is quite a ways away. It's got all nicks up and down here parallel with this, and up into even up to here. So this buck had to have quite the cage on him to do that. Pretty interesting. And this one's got, there's rub marks on it from last year too. So pretty good. I mean, that's got to be at least 3-year-old buck at that height.
Right on the 1/3 elevation.
And another thing you're going to notice too is where we went in and where all those tree stands were was all pretty open hardwoods. If you look behind me, it's starting to get thicker and thicker as we get close to the bedding points, which is good. So maybe we got some hope here anyways. So when we're walking the side hill, we know we're at that top 1/3 elevation where we need to be when you start seeing these rubs. What's important is a lot of people just look for fresh rubs, but these historical rubs like this one in the background here will tell us that deer have historically used this elevation. So this is in line with the fresh ones, but it's just a little bit more to tell me that this is the right elevation. And literally walking along here, you can look around and you can see the trails, but you have to know to look here to see it. A lot of people get stuck on what elevation to be on. You can see it by these historical rubs. I mean, if there's no rubs at all, I probably wouldn't hunt there. But if there's some old, some new, it tells you where they're at.
Yeah.
So we're on the back of the property. It's thick, and there's some good rut sign coming through. There's some rubs, some scrapes, some big rubs. A lot more sign back here, not much hunting pressure. However, I can see onto the neighbors, and I can see they got a giant tower over there for gun hunting. So that neighbor hunts a little bit over here, but we still haven't gotten to the points. Now we're at the back of the property, and that tower blind is right over the hill here. Here's the private line mark right here, right? This point goes down here, down into there. I'm pretty sure that tower blind is a gun blind. That's the only thing you could shoot out of that thing. This still might be a good spot for bow hunting. So we're going to walk down and look at that point and see if there's any bedding on this one. So we haven't gotten to the beds yet. We're still going down the point. But what I noticed was I didn't see any of the fresh rubs, but there's a lot of historical rubs coming down here. Matter of fact, I can see them all around me right now. Heading down to the tip of the point and coming out of the point. And standing right here, I can see little beds all over the place. Like behind me here, over here, over here. This is definitely a doe bedding area. And when you see this and you're not sure, all you have to do is kind of go in here and just see if there's any hair or anything. And yeah, look close here. There's a belly hair here. See that?
Yep.
Can you see that on film or no?
I think so.
Yeah, there's another one. So what these does do is they bed up higher in a circle fashion. And literally this is about where we'd have to set up. You're going to blow some does out of here. You just have to live with that. Generally they're just going to trot over the hill. They're going to hear you coming from a distance or see you from right here. They can see the whole hillside where you'd set up. But what we'll do is we'll go in and we'll look at those buck beds and then we'll determine where to set up. But we do have to keep the doe beds in mind. I mean, we don't want to set up right on top of them. So here's one of the historical rubs right here. This whole way has been historical rubs. Bucks have been in here. There's another nice one, this pine tree here. That pine tree's been rubbed. See that? Looks like last year there was a giant living in here because this is just ripped up.
Those are pretty high.
Bed flats. See the flats in the rocks? Right next to that big rub. Gotta ask yourself, what would a deer be doing there? Other than bedding. Well, leaves are compressed right here. See that?
Yep. Right on the point.
Anybody coming up from the from the access, he's coming right up here. He's looking at them. Now I'm gonna bet there's some really good beds right on that rock point down here. If we go down there, but I'm willing to bet that this whole radius here gets bedded. It's hard to see because of the leaves, but you can see where they're compressed from recent bedding. So this is the very point of the point, which is where I would expect the primary bed to be. And here it is, right here. And you're kind of worn in. Right there. There's probably a secondary bed down there too, but this is the perfect elevation here. Kind of a good spot. Here's a spot here. Looks like that used to be a bed till the branch fell in it, right behind that tree. There's a bed right here, kind of worn, it's got poop in it. There's poop, there's a bed right here. That'd be all leaves if that wasn't a bed. So, my take on this is a really good looking bedding area here, and a really good looking point. It's got good cover. It's got cedar in here, so it's shaded real well, where you don't have any cedar anywhere else in this woods that I've seen. This point looks really good, but for some reason, it looks like based on the old rubs and stuff, that this is really being used a couple years ago real heavy by something big, or by a lot of big deer. And beyond that, I don't see any much fresh sign. So something's going on here.
Right.
So let's go back out and we'll go over to the next point and see what's going on there.
Hey Dan, there's a trail camera.
Where?
Right there.
Oh, look at that. Alright, how you doing?
Oh.
Well, you know what's interesting about this is that is only, number one, it's right in the doe bedding area. We must have walked right past this. The buck beds are literally, what, 50 yards from us?
Yeah.
If that. You know what, I bet you this is that guy that's got the tower blind, because the tower blind is right in line with the trails coming out of here on the private up there.
I agree.
And I bet you he put this camera here, and now it's making sense why all the signs dried up. Because this sign is all from like 2 years ago. And that blind over there is new. Camera's new.
Oh, there was some fresh poop down there.
Wait, some deer are going to bed here. Would you see any giant buck sign? No. So hopefully, maybe the last couple of points are good.
Hopefully.
Otherwise, we're going to have to run to another property and look some more.
Yep.
All right. Bye.
See ya.
All right, so this is the last point right here running down. So I don't see much for sign coming out of here, but I don't know. It looks like a good tangle down there, so we'll check it and see what it looks like. And this is our last hope for this property. Come on. Oh, we got a nice rub right on the point,
Yeah.
right on the top. Let's take a look at it. Here's a good one too. You can see some old beds under in here. One here. This one's got some rubbing on it too from a couple years ago. This side too. And this is fresh. So this point does get some bedding, but it's not extreme. Just in the very dip over here one. See what we see. Bed there, it's got some turds in it, a couple different piles. So here's my take on it. There's some sign here. There's some big bucks here. Based on these rubs, they're all the same height. Looks like a big rack, but I think it's one buck that's really running this property. And a guy'd have a lot of pressure. You'd have a chance to kill something like this. But he obviously isn't bedding here all the time. These beds don't show enough use. He's here for a period of time. A guy could monitor him with trail cameras. Well, one of the good points, probably the best point, already is being monitored by a trail camera. But a guy could monitor this one. If he hunted around here and it was easily accessible. But for me, I traveled to this destination. I got some better stuff down the road. I'm going to keep looking. I want to find something better. So we're going to kind of write this property off and keep going.
That's the way I felt about it too.
Yeah, I mean, it started to look good when we got back here, started seeing rubs and stuff. But I just think this area is getting too much pressure. What's odd is right down the street, you know, half mile or so, I hunt a spot with a giant parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that don't have as much pressure as this has.
Right.
You know, it's the only way to find out is to walk it. However, what you can take from this is the bedding areas that we walked and the points that we walked to, that we looked at on the map, were exactly where the bucks were bedded. And what I did was, I looked at the hillsides, I looked at the back of this property being leeward, I looked at there was no parking lots. It was really hard to access this property. And then I looked at the points that were on the back here. There were two main points down here and one little knob over here. Coming back here, I figured that these 2 points would have the best bedding.
Yep.
And exactly right. The only places we found signs of big bucks was coming in and out of those 2 points.
Right.
And you can see how you can read this right at that 1/3 elevation where those little knobs come out of that hillside, and they're pointing downwind. So if we get a normal west wind or northwest wind, it's blowing right down those hill points. So we knew those would look good if there wasn't too much pressure here. They look okay, but it ain't what I want to waste a lot of time on.
Right.
But you can see how I came right out here, went right to those points, and was able to know what's going on this whole property. And that's the key. A lot of guys are coming here and getting this thick stuff and just wander around all over the place looking for a setup, looking for a rub. Maybe find a pile of rubs where the buck bred a doe or something and think he's onto something. And a buck was there once during the night and just sit there for hours and days and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What you really need to do is just check out those points and make sure that buck is living on this property.
Right.
But we got is that bucks living here a little bit of the time, not all the time. So my assessment would be you'd have to put a lot of time into it and it'd be hard to kill this buck.
Right.
So we're going to move on and look at some other
The
stuff.
main pressure, I think, is from people coming off the private land, though.
Right, there's nobody coming in here for public.
Right?
These are the guys that live around it.
Yep.
For sure. I mean, we had to bust brush to get in here.
Yeah.
There's no trail getting in here. The only access that you can get in here legally, there's nobody coming in that way.
Right.
They're coming in from the private land. All right. Can you guys hear Rick breathing? It's like a freight train.
Shut up.